Let's take a start, shall we? Dagon is a faithful interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work, focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot. I'm sad there's no inventory management, but other than that, I can live.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
That was quick. Well, this is interesting immediately. Oh. Alright, I clicked. I'll be honest, that was kind of by mistake, but here we are. During the game, you'll encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey, others reveal interesting facts about the original short story. I'm sure I've read, but at this moment in time, I don't remember it at all, so that's good. Its historical background and the author. Oh no. If you've never looked into H.P. Lovecraft as an author and a person, the dude was racist. If you're an adult and can handle things like this, go look up the name of his cat, and you'll figure it out. If you're a child, don't do that. Or do, whatever, I'm not a cop. Some of the trivia is hidden. In order to find these secrets, focus your eyes and look for the Elder sign. You can also access all of the found facts later. They will be available in the main menu. So I like the controller prompt. That's funny. I'm pretty sure I've actually used that same, like, it's not Getty Images, but it's like in Google Images or whatever. Focus is right mouse bumper. Okay. These will make sense as they go, I'm sure. All right, let's take a look. So, right away, that corner is way worse than this corner. That's exciting. Sorry about my mouse movement. It is actually a brand new mouse, and I'm trying to learn it. Okay. My hands went to WASD and nothing happened. So maybe this is purely a mouse game. In which case, I'd probably use my controller. But that's okay. We're here now. Oh. Cool. And there's the Elder sign, right? Oh, okay. I'm reading. Cool. Lovecraft's letters. As to letters, my case is peculiar. I write such things exactly as easily and as rapidly as I would utter the same topics in conversation. Indeed. Ooh. Epistolary? I don't know that word. Expression is, with me, largely replacing conversation, as my condition of nervous prostration becomes more and more acute. I cannot bear to talk much now, and am becoming as silent as the spectre himself. My loquacity extends itself on paper. H.P. Lovecraft to Reinhard Kleiner, December 23rd, 1917. These are old. Throughout his life, Lovecraft penned around 100,000 letters to his friends and fans, out of which about 10% survive to this day. That's a shame. But his tendency to endless correspondence was a relatively late growth. In youth, I scarcely did any letter writing. Thanking anybody for a present was so much of an ordeal that I would rather have written a 250-line pastoral or a 20-page treatise on the rings of Saturn. Selected letters 1929 to 1931 by H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft would often skip meals to afford postage. Collections of his correspondence have been published in various books. Selected letters can be found online. Some readers consider them his most important legacy. Cool. I'll be honest, I didn't know that. Still a huge racist. Man.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Did he commit suicide? Is that how he went? I didn't know that.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate.
The way the camera's bent down, like his head's facing the table, is a little disorientating, but that's okay.
When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Uh-huh. anything else to click on. Guess I'll click on this. Sorry if that came across. Morphine entered into use in the 19th century and was routinely administered to treat severe pain during the American Civil War and World War I. It was also sold without restrictions until 1914. Morphine became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe around 1854. Frederick Saturner, I don't know the umlaut and how you're supposed to do that, who first isolated the substance, originally named it morphium after Morpheus, the Greek god associated with dreams, the black guy from The Matrix. At this time, when Dagon was published, morphine abuse, known as soldier's disease, already posed a big problem in the United States. Cool. I had heard of this, actually. I knew a little bit about that. I've never taken... I don't think I've ever taken morphine.
It was in one of the most
Maybe I
open
did.
and least frequented parts of the broad
I don't know.
Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
Yes. Okay. So this is totally a mouse game. Alright, good enough. Lovecraft and the Great War. Dagon was written around a month after the United States entered World War I. Lovecraft was actively interested in its course. He combines many poems in which he gave encouragement to soldiers commented on the events unfolding in Europe. I talk for a living. Go figure that one out. He tried to enlist in the army, which he mentions in one of his letters to Reinhard Kleiner. Some time ago, impressed by the entire uselessness in the world, I resolved to attempt enlistment despite my almost invalid condition. I heard that if I chose a regiment soon to depart for France, my sheer nervous force, which was not inconsiderable, might sustain me till a bullet or piece of shrapnel could more conclusively and effectively dispose of me. That's well written, and I like that. But even though he passed the physical exam, his mother prevented him from going to the war. She has threatened to go to any lengths, legal or otherwise, if I do not reveal all of the ills which unfit me for the army. I Am Providence: The Life and Times of H.P. Lovecraft by S.T. Joshi. Cool. Those are all bad noises.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean force...
Oh, shit. Sorry. Fuck. I clicked by accident. Why is that an option? Great forces of the Hun and not completely sunk to their later degradation. Who's the Hun? Oh, look at the flag! Now that's cool. You do not see that often. I'm actually going to take a picture of that. Where's my phone? Where's my phone? I'm literally taking a picture of my screen right now. How cool that is. You do not see that flag often. Probably for the best, if I'm brutally honest, but, you know, here it is. This is a well, animated and textured game. And movement's hard, so it does make a lot of sense.
So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Cool. Good for them. Oh, here we go. The Huns. I was acting. The Huns were Central Asian nomads who established a dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century A.D. And it was like the actual Huns. Oh. Huh. Second paragraph. We're reading ahead. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors and masters of quick raids who also developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and early siege weapons. It's true. I didn't expect the game to lie to me. I don't know why I'm saying it's true, but cool. During World War I, the British used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans in order to emphasize their brutality. However, the term originated with the German Emperor Wilhelm II, gave a speech to his troops on the 27th of July in 1900, before they embarked to China. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited. Just as 1,000 years ago, the Huns under their king Attila made a name for themselves, one that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend. May the name German be affirmed with you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever again dare to look cross-eyed at a German. That was rude. The refusal to take prisoners was a clear breach of the laws and customs of war adopted during the First Hague Convention of 1899. I like how it was 1 year later. Ugh. Oh, you actually can walk. Well, I mean, you can.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Good for you, man. That doesn't look right. That texture didn't look right. Cool, though. Fire. Nothing else to look at? Fair enough. The sea looks really good. I'm really impressed with the sea. It's no pirate or Sea of Thieves, but you're also doing a lot less with it, so.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings.
Well, yeah, it's the sea, man. It's fucking confusing.
Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
I am not a navigator by any stretch. My sea ability is very low. Very, very low. You could arguably say 0. But fuck this scenario is kind of the whole gist of that point. I would die.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
So good luck with that. I like it as like fuzz to the horizon. Like that could be a texturing problem, but honestly, I kind of dig the way that it looks. It's kind of like that misty morning look, which is cool. Just super cool. Oh, yeah. The water is going to be your problem.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept.
Turned into a mermaid.
Its
Spoilers.
details I shall never know. For my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
That took a turn. Cool, though. Alright. Okay. Alright. Camera angle choices are very strange, sir.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see.
Good writing.
And in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished. For there was in the air, and in the rotting soil, a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish,
Creepy.
and of other, less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain.
Less describable things. That's vague and unhelpful. Like clearly that's a Nautilus shell. Or a geode. Pokemon. Helix shell. That looks like a bigger one. So we're looking at like shrimp and octopi. Or squid or combinations of them. Alright.
Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity.
So, That's a really interesting concept of H.P. Lovecraft writing, is that if you look at it scientifically and logically, he leaves out most details of everything. It's just this kind of omnipresent, vague sense of horror. Of just like, I lacked the ability to describe how horrible things are. Which tells you a story of, oh my god, it's really horrible. But as a writer, that sounds lazy as fuck. I'm not going to bother writing out all the details of horror. You have to imagine that you can't imagine it. And I love that. I love that as a concept. I genuinely do. Because it allows anyone else on the fucking planet to interpret those writings how they see fit. And that's really cool.
There was nothing within hearing, and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Oh, hey. That's a thingy. I know what that is. I don't remember what it is, but I know what it is. That's just a big-ass fish. Oh, boat. Boat! Anything else? Gotta look for clues, man. Nobody needed to
As I
record
crawled
that.
into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Yeah, and what would that be?
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths.
I'd consider that an extremely educated guess. That makes a lot of sense. Oh, that's horrible. Oh, that's horrible. I love it. That is a wonderfully scientific guess. If your brain is trying to logic out horror, that is a great guess. Wrong, but it's a great guess.
So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might.
Sorry, I was petting my cat. What are we doing?
Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
Well, I mean, the sea's big, you know? Like, really. Really big. So that just could be happenstance, you know? Any more clues? I guess we'll go on.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get comfortable. Yeah, makes sense. At least you got some shade. Arguably, this is food, depending. I mean, you're gonna get hungry the way this goes.
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time.
Dude, this is its own survival game right here. Raft, Stardew Valley, fuck you, right here. Green Hell. The Forest. Minecraft, obviously. Others. What else is
That night
popular?
I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
Good idea. One's a little red and glowy. Full moon. Good lighting. Really like the lighting. Appreciate it.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease.
Well, that's good. We're all very proud of that. This looks new. Is it that long, or is it like the weird texture blending into the thing? It could just be that long. Not super sure on that one. That looks weird, right? That looks like a platform.
The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
I mean, that's what you got to do, brother. Seriously, is it that big? Penis joke. All right, moving on. Walk through that.
All day I
Oh
forged
my
steadily
God.
westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Not familiar with the word hummock. I mean, obviously he's going towards like a mountain or something. What are those? All right, two thoughts. What are those? And did this come with the Unity asset creator or whatever you're using for this? Unreal. You just needed horrors. Because that looks very video gamey. And horrible. And awful. And that's what the ocean is. The ocean is awful. Don't pretend to tell me that deep water is not horrifying. I'm not afraid of it. I swim pretty reasonably. For, my size, I guess. But fuck. Shit's spooky. I'll be honest, I expected dialogue. Hey, a whale! You can eat the fuck out of that. So, the volcanic upheaval actually is really kind of tracking in logic. That could just be like one of those Japanese super crabs in the ocean. You've seen that. If you haven't, go fucking look that shit up. Holy fuck, the ocean's scary. That looks like a whale. I would argue that's a whale. I'm gonna assume it's dead. Because if it's alive, it's so much worse. I'm gonna pretend it's dead. Or sleeping.
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
This is a great location for survival horror. Maybe a little basic, but interesting. You hack up all these things and rocks, and you can band things together, and you get food and water out of them. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying. What's this? The horrors of the ocean. Hey, we were talking about the creator of the Cthulhu mythos and the fictional underwater city of Riley. I'm gonna say Riley. It's been spoken aloud, and I don't remember. I was convinced that life could not exist at the bottom of the ocean because the water pressure would make it uninhabitable. Today, we know that the darkest depths of the oceans are homes to many peculiar organisms. The deepest dwelling fish we have discovered so far, the Mariana snailfish, can live about 8,000 meters, more than 2,600 feet, below the ocean's surface, in never-ending darkness and at hellishly crushing pressures, hundreds of times stronger than those found at sea level. So I'm only just now putting together the fact that they're emphasizing some of the bold print words for greater emphasis, and I'm not reading it that way, so I'm going to work on that going forward. Upon glancing at the modern photos of deep-sea creatures, such as the anglerfish, the fangtooth, and the viperfish, fuck the anglerfish. That's the one I definitely know. There are truly Lovecraftian characteristics. It's hard not to find some irony in this. You're right. He's right. I mean, he's super right on that. All of that is true. I don't even have a joke for it. It's just factual.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
Makes sense.
I know not why my dreams were so wild that night.
You're getting close to it, obviously.
But ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain.
Someone explained to me what a gibbous moon was, and I don't remember it. Oh, Google it. It's one of the weird moon phases.
I was awake
That
in
one.
a cold perspiration, determined to sleep
Assume.
no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again.
I've drank that much. I know that feeling.
And in the glow of the moon, I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day.
Oh?
Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy.
Huh. I didn't actually consider that. He's right.
Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Good line. Crest of the eminence. Fuck, I gotta use that somewhere.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon,
How do you not notice the difference?
whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
Cool.
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent,
I'm kind of surprised by that.
whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
Good word.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated.
Anyone else see the 2001 Space Odyssey monolith?
All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
I hope that picked up.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
And so you're not going to try. I'm going to take a wild guess and assume it wasn't like lust or something. It was probably fear, horror, trepidation. Could be a number of things. Anger, rage, frustration, despair, hope, listlessness.
For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young,
2,000 years ago.
I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith.
The joke here is it doesn't look anything like a well.
Whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures.
Horrifying.
Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
That's a good line, too. I'm not me as a human being, I'm not a scientist or an archaeologist. I have very little to no interest in doing those things in my entire life. But in this particular situation, I could definitely get into that role. It belongs in a museum. Or burned. I don't actually know. This could go either way. Oh my.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly
Zenith.
and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm,
I'm just being an asshole. Do it either way.
and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions, and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope.
That layering looks a little weird, but maybe that's me.
Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith,
Good word. Fuck.
on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
Oh, you can kind of see him in the reflection, just a tad. I like that. Also, when I turned right, I thought this was like a car sticking out. You know what I mean? Just it's kind of just front end of a car. Like, oh.
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me, and
Yeah.
unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
Okay, wait a second. Before he continues on and ruins my thought. What do you mean, unlook? Those are fish, my guy. Those are sharks. That's a seahorse. Some of this you should know. Maybe not all of it. Some of it's deep sea horse shit. But, like, I'm reasonably certain there's probably a whale in here. There's definitely, like, squids and octopi, which you just saw. Don't know nothing.
Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world.
I mean, this was written in the early 1900s, so that's fair.
But whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain.
See what I mean? He was gonna ruin my entire thought.
It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
I can see that. It's very intricate and awesome. Let's take a look at it, shall we? Storytelling method. Dagon contains many. Excuse me. I'm gonna take that line again. Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later works, such as telling the story through carvings at the Mountains of Madness and the Nameless City, journals and character notes, such as The Shadow Out of Time and The Haunter of the Dark, islands emerging from the ocean, The Call of Cthulhu, or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies, Mygo and the Whisper in Darkness. I don't know why I stuttered over that one. It's also considered the origin of the proper Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also conclude in a manner similar to Dagon, but let's skip the details in order not to spoil the ending. Very well written. Author of this video game.
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré.
I don't know what that is.
I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men.
Oh god, it was mermaids. Fuck, I called mermaids earlier.
Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail.
Again, wonderful imagery, terrible imagery.
For the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
I think that's a racist comment. I'm not super on that one. Poe is Polish? I don't know what Bulwer is.
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips.
Fish people. Fish people!
Glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall.
There's not that many features, my guy, but cool.
Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background.
How so?
for one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
Ah.
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe.
Wonderfully logical conclusion to come across. Wrong, but wonderful.
Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
Not exactly. Maybe. Not exactly. Cool, though. I would get that as a tattoo, the bottom one. That's fucking sick as fuck. I mean, the whole fucking monolith's cool as hell. Fuck it, if somebody paid for it, I would totally get this entire monolith with its intricate writing on it and, like, on my back somewhere. As a tattoo. That sounds awesome.
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it.
Jesus? Is that Jesus?
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Vast, Polyphemus-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith,
I don't think that's Jesus.
about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little.
So what this is, in very clever, clear writing, clear, air quote, is the Dark Souls gif of the lantern and the skeleton. Nope, I'm out. Fuck that shit, I'm out. Exactly what that was. And now I've got a filter effect. I weirdly look like I'm on the moon. That was actually my first guess, was like, now I'm in space.
I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
It's a good way to go mad. Can you imagine going so mad that you start singing pop tunes? Or I mean, I listen to death metal, so listen to like singing death metal and like it would be fucking weird. It would be so weird. Oh, that's funny. Dude does a bit. I'll never remember that.
I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat.
That's usually a good sign.
At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
Is it not peals? It's pels? I thought it was peels. I don't know. I that could just be something. I don't know. Doesn't matter either way, obviously. Curious.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital.
Why?
Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean.
Well, that explains that.
In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention.
Because of the There's Jesus! I found Jesus.
Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
I mean, that's fair. What's the perspective in this particular situation here, dude? I'm not heralding on the animator or the programmer or the designer or anything like that, but like, there's no attempt at a body. I am literally a floating head on a pillow right now. Oh well. What's this? Journalist. Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. In 1915, he started publishing in his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary. which I'm sure holds up super well. Poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith. I almost said who the fuck was Howard, and then I remembered who we're talking about. H.P. Lovecraft is Howard. That makes sense. Was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again. For the first time since his teenage years, Dagon, published in 1919, was one of the short stories written during that period. In an example excerpt from The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being could believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments, the United States, and the proper time to take advantage of the more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career conquest against unarmed victims. No country is or ever will be above warfare until the basic impulses of the human animal shall have miraculously changed. I understand the point where he's going for. I totally understand that. I don't even think I disagree with it. Maybe a little. But, like, I think that's like the Okay. Let me try that sentence again. Second take. The thought line is understood and sound, but if I believed deeply in my heart of hearts that we were unable to ever have peace like this on Earth, not excluding, alien warfare and whatever the fuck, I would jump off a cliff. Because what's the fuck the point? Door! It looked like a smaller door inside that door.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist.
I've never heard that. Ethnologist?
And amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Which I assume he brought to the table and not you. Because why would you have that name? Dagon! Dagon, or Dagon. In the main entity is the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamian, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests, which makes no sense. He has also appeared in the Judge of the Dead in the Assyrian poem, and an underworld prison warder, in one of the Babylonian texts. Warder? Not warden? Warder? Not sure what that means. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as the Hebrew of the word dag means fish. Which makes sense. Dag. In H.P. Lovecraft's works, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that reside in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. That makes sense. Fish people. Weird mermaid overlays, which I did call earlier, just saying. Kind of surprised there's like not more hidden. Like you remember seeing at the very beginning the game explain you can look for those little leafy things. Surprised there's not more of them, especially like right here. It's like a perfect time to use it, but maybe that's me. It's just an opinion. I'm not saying you should or should not do it that way. It's just how I feel.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
You know why he's hopelessly conventional? Two things. The scientist who studies whatever he was studying, whatever that is. And you don't do enough drugs. I'm going to leave that one alone. I'm not going to tell you if that was a joke or not. What you got? Hey, the Necronomicon. Everybody's favorite book. August Derleth and the Cthulhu Mythos. Okay. August Derleth was an American writer and an anthologist. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's works after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. Isn't fucking everybody? One of the most questionable decisions involved introducing the good versus evil doctrine. Daedalus was a devout Catholic. Shocker! To the world, to the Cthulhu mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. It is also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Daedalus after the author left the mortal plane. That's fair. I get that. That makes perfect sense. I have no issue with any of that. Not sure why we had to learn it on the Necronomicon, but, so be it. It's weird to have the ability... Okay. There's like a weird spot right here. Oh, okay. And, alright. I'm pretty sure I'm an owl. Horrifying. Let's just continue so we don't break anything. A little quirky, but that's okay. The rug looks off. Like it's got like a squished side. You know what I mean? That's what that crease is. What exact... Okay. Why did he walk over here? What? Look at the clock? Huh. This game was gonna have a jump scare. Well, A, I'll be pissed. And B, that'd be a good time for it.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
Great movie. 1980 something.
I tried morphine.
Yes, you did.
But the drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave.
Transient surcease. Great combination of words.
So now, I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
I feel like there's a third category in that. Either to be mocked or to learn from. There's probably like a third category, right? Like a little bit of a combination, maybe? Like, ah ha ha, this guy was a psychopath. And if I'm ever in the ocean, I will check my back all the time. You know what I mean? Like a warning, like a prophet. What's this? Lovecraft on tobacco and alcohol. This will be interesting. Cosmic horror scholar. Who, me? Lovecraft hated tobacco, even though he used to smoke when he was 12 in order to look and feel like an adult. In his correspondence with friend Reinhard Kleiner, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. Okay. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced by his letter to Zelia Brown. That's a fucking cool name. I've never heard that. Why aren't we using Zelia now? Name a kid Zelia. Unless I'm mispronouncing that. Zeal for life? That's fucking killer. Dated 13th of February and day before Valentine's Day. That's interesting. 1928. As for the matter of drinking, I've never tasted intoxicating liquor and never intend to. Having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or coarsens the delicate natural equipoise, they know what that is, of the evolved human intellect and imagination. Interesting. Drinking excited my personal repugnance, hence I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I'm rather in favor of prohibition. Prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as of any other. That's a weird sentence. Source: The Spirit of Revision, Lovecraft's Letters to Celia Brown, Reed Bishop, H.P. Lovecraft, Sean Brannering, and Andrew Lemon, S.D. Joshi. Prohibition of any one antisocial force. I am rather in favor of prohibition. The prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as any other. Okay. Am I understanding that sentence correctly? So he's rather in favor of prohibition. So this is a positive for him. What is prohibition? The prohibition of any one, the one that he's talking about, the prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as any other. So the antisocial force that he thinks he's prohibiting is alcohol, right? And yet, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, if you're drinking, you're with other people. Now, if you're an alcoholic and you're drinking alone, and trust me, I've been there, it's totally, that's a whole other beast. But most people drink socially, with friends, with relatives, at bars, and strangers, and Applebee's, and like, how is that an antisocial force? If you drink hard, like staring at the bottom of a glass alone in the dark, the blanket on, nothing else, I've been there. That's totally an antisocial force. That is one of the most depressing goddamn things on the planet. But if you're out having friends and having a few beers, I mean, as long as you're safe about it, obviously, what's the big deal? And the prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as any of the other. Anything that makes you antisocial, he doesn't like? Is that what you're telling me? I'm trying to reach for examples of what makes you antisocial. Books. People that read a lot usually don't interact with a lot of other people. That's kind of a stereotype, although it's relatively true. But he's an author, so how could you be the prohibition, rather in favor of prohibition of an antisocial force like that? Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's a weird sentence, right? That's a weird sentence. Anyway, sorry, getting totally off topic. Yeah. Let's continue.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm.
Could be.
A mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat, after my escape from the German man-of-war.
Type of jellyfish, I believe. Not the German part, the man-of-war part.
This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply.
There's the build-up. Can you hear the music?
I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed. Worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Those warships? Or those backs of beasts? I can't actually tell. I'm going to assume backs of beasts because they're copy-pasted.
The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body
Well done.
lumbering against it.
Well done. A very well done effect. Oh. That was weird. They do that on purpose? I didn't play with that feature. No, it kind of didn't want me to click.
It shall not find me.
You see how the dialogue, okay, hands off mouse. So the 3 arrows for the dialogue is there. See, now I'm trying to trick it and it's not running away. Well, fuck me.
God, that hand!
Oh, I kind of barely saw it.
The window! The window!
It is a window. He's right. Good noise. We hoped you enjoyed immersing yourself in our little pool of cosmic horror. We'd appreciate it if you took a moment to rate Dagon and check out our other games and DLCs. All right. Leave feedback. I might do that. Probably not. There's the logo. Good logo. It's like coin sized. You could definitely print that on something. It's too intricate for like a proper coin size. You kind of want simple for interest, but I dig it. But I dig it nonetheless. You can either go like crazy hard right on the intricacy or crazy hard left on the simplicity. If you try and middle ground it, it's a lot harder to do. Let's take a look at trivia. Is that it? Okay. There is shit I missed. Oh, I hate that. Now I'm mad. I'm mad. I really didn't think I was missing shit. I thought that was a really comprehensive, like, thing, but fuck, I really missed shit. Oh, dear. Maybe I didn't zoom enough. Maybe that's what it was. All right.